Hey, everybody, and welcome one more time to El Camino People, the podcast. As you know, we're here to share stories and stories about what matters most, the people, no? And I'm always, glad that I can help people and provide, with help that you need to go to the Camino de Santiago. One of the things that I think it's great of being in Spain is being able to help people abroad that there's so much information all over the world that podcasts, blogs, YouTube, Facebook, but at the end knowing firsthand for someone that lives here, it's a great idea. And you know that you always can contact me and I always glad to help you guys. And I think that's how we met. Truly, Maddie, welcome and thank you to being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, you're the one who inspired me to do the Camino initially.
That's all I care. That's it. That's the interview. We're done. That's all I need.
Mic
So
drop.
when was it? I'm like the first time I always ask, how people find out the Camino Santiago, but I think we can start with a question. How did you find out about the Camino? You're from the States and usually it's the movie The Way. Where in your case the movie The Way or something else?
Well, yes, I found out on the Camino that a lot of Americans learn about the Camino about through the way, and I
Hmm.
also that is how I initially learned about it. I took a class in college, and one of our assignments was to watch the movie, and
Really?
since then,
Such a smart
yeah,
teacher.
yeah. And then it kind of planted a seed in my mind, and I was like, oh, I want to do that someday. And that was about 5 years ago. And then I started doing research a little over a year ago, and that's when I found El Camino people, and I reached out to you, and then started doing more research. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to do it this past summer before I start medical school, and that's kind of how it started.
That's amazing. A lot of times people right now, one of the things that I'm a little eager about it, that a lot of people complain about people that walk, very few days in the Camino de Santiago, or about a lot of people talking in blogs and Instagram or whatever. Like, if the more people we talk, the more seeds we plant. And for everyone that is talking about the Camino, no matter what, if there's someone like you out there that decided to go to the Camino, and I truly believe that we all became better person thanks to the Camino. I'm like, what is the wrong
Definitely.
of it? The more, even if you do 5 days, 6 days, if you're doing a blog, you're doing a podcast, you're on Instagram, whatever, I think
Right.
the Camino has so much power to get people into the right direction. And also in this time, after we have all these 2 years of COVID, being able to go out, and still, right now we see in the news and we see that still in China and in other places there is still something that is there. And like we
Right.
all thought that it was just in the movies, but
Yeah. No, exactly. It's such a special experience. I'm so grateful for it.
anyway, before we start into the business, we have the 1 minute questionnaire. So are you ready? For the ones that is the first
Yes.
time, I have a list that I created about 4 years ago of a ton of questions. And the
Okay.
whole idea is just to warm up and to see what comes to this, the pilgrims' minds when I mention it. And there's a couple of tricky questions that we will be see what you think about. So
Okay.
ready?
Yes.
Let's go. Your first Camino.
El Camino Francés.
How many Caminos?
One.
One city.
Burgos.
One meal.
Um, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to remember all my Spanish right now. um, what's the potato side dish? Oh, tortilla. Tortilla.
Tortilla. Oh, a happy moment.
Um, walking to Hospital de Orbigo.
Sad moment.
Leaving the Camino.
A song.
Um, Halo by Beyonce.
A color.
Blue.
Smell.
Flowers.
Café con leche, solo o cortado.
Café con leche.
And the omelette with or without onions.
Without.
Why?
I don't know. I just don't like onions very much.
Yeah, okay. There's that with people out there, but yeah, we'll count it. And the final question, the timer is over, but I always like to one. If you would like, if there's someone, in the whole history of the world that you can walk the Camino with, who will you choose?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Maybe Benjamin Franklin.
Why? That's interesting.
I just think he's such an interesting person who did so many things, and I would just try to soak up all the things that he would tell me along the way.
Cool. You can tell that you're an American. Probably no European will think of Benjamin Franklin, but it's true. Such an incredible person. And all why that we don't know most of what he did. Also, like you stated, on the top, and but interesting. Yep. And let's go back to the Camino. How the Camino comes to your mind? Suddenly, you watched the movie The Way, and what was the first thing that came to your mind?
I just love adventure, and it sounded like an amazing thing to do on your own, just to go out there and, I don't know, see what it brings.
But it's incredible, like a movie that is, at the end is sad. I'm like a journey that gets broken for sudden death. I'm like someone that is totally in the best time of his life. Suddenly that gets stopped, and his that has to continue. So it's incredible how a movie that is so sad and so heartbreaking ended up, being such a powerful move to a lot of people to go and do the Camino de Santiago.
That is true. I think by the time, 5 years rolled around, I maybe forgot about some of the details of the movie and just remembered like the hike itself. So maybe it's good I didn't watch it before, like right before I went.
I watched it a few months ago, and I was like, "Wow, what this is old." That was the first, go. I'm like, "Oh my God, this I have that memory." You sometimes you create those memories about old movies or TV shows, and suddenly it's like, "Wow."
Yeah. No, for sure. I've wanted to rewatch it since I've come home. So I think I'm going to try to do that during this
What was
break.
the point from your teacher? Why did he, did you have to do watch the movie and do a little project about it?
So I went to a Jesuit college, actually.
I
Yeah,
went to Jesuit
so
school also, so
yeah, and I was in a program called the Manresa program, actually, and it was about kind of personal development and finding your meaning in life. And so we kind of watched the way as um, a means to kind of talk about what we think we're meant to be here on this earth for.
cool. Did you know that Koreans are one of the ones that they're growing like the amount is really small, but they're times every year goes like twice or three times or four times. And in Korea, I've been told that a lot of people they put the Camino de Santiago in their resume.
Really? Oh, I love
Mhm.
that.
And in college, that they're that a lot of people they go there. It's like they good credits for doing the Camino de Santiago, and I think it's such a great day because it is at the end, it's the best subject that you can get in college.
Exactly. I think it's such a valuable learning experience that you can't get in a classroom for sure.
Mhm. It's a great classroom. And you didn't have any one that you have any contact with any pilgrimages, the Camino de Santiago, nothing till the movie The Way came to your classroom.
Right, exactly. I had not heard about it before then. And since after then, I didn't know anyone personally who had ever done it either.
Interesting. And what did it call you? The adventure part, but have you ever been, like a mountaineer? Do you like trekking? Have you ever gone on a long distance hike?
Yes, yeah, I do love being outside and hiking. I lived in South America for 1 year after high school and before going to college, and I did a lot of hiking then. So I knew, and I was also interested in solo travel, but um, I like, spending time to reflect and think about things. So I thought this would be a perfect combination of having that time independently, going on a huge adventure, and then also the opportunity to form community and meet people from all over the world.
What difference? I'm like, how many people were in your class when you watched the movie?
It was probably a group of around 30 of us. We all
And
watched it
any one of
together.
them have walked the Camino or have thought about walking the Camino after the movie, or were you the only one that was, like lighting up?
I think initially people were like, "Oh, I want to do this," but I don't know of anyone else in my class who has done it. But I shared with my professor that I had done it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you remembered that from all those years ago." She was kind of surprised. Um, but I hope more people do it.
And then you watched the movie, but 5 years passed. Through those years, was something, the Camino that came every year, was something that you were planning for this specific time that you know that you're going to have time off, or was something that suddenly you were like, I need to go to the Camino right now?
Yes. So it was always at the back of my mind, but I was pretty busy throughout college and in my summers in between, and I didn't really have a long stretch of time where I would be able to do it. And then I had plans to begin medical school in August of this year. And so then when I kind of finalized that, I was like, okay, I'm dropping everything. I got to go to the Camino. I got to do this now before I start medical school because it will be really hard to have that much time again to do it. So I was like, it's now or never. If I don't do it now, I'm not sure I'll ever do it. So
What your family and friends told you on like because coming from no one in your area knew of the Camino, have walked the Camino. I'm like you're gonna go a month and a half to Spain by yourself to walk this Camino.
yeah, it definitely took some convincing, especially for my mom. I had to kind of explain to them and teach them what the Camino was. Because at first, when you tell your parents, oh, I'm going to go to Spain and walk by myself 500 miles across the country, they were like, what? What are you going to do? So, yeah, but they came around. And I think when I went away to South America by myself after high school, that was a huge shocker to them. So then when I proposed this, they were like, not, I guess, not as surprised, but
I guess that's more of a civilized country. Going to South America is a totally different subject.
yeah, and I was younger then too, so they knew I've had experience traveling by myself. Um, so then once I like told them about it, and my dad too, he was like, "This sounds so cool! Like I want to do it." So they came on board, but I had to keep in touch with them every day when I was on the Camino.
I did also, yeah. When I did my first Camino, I was always sending, 10 pictures to my mom. I'm still alive. Don't worry.
yeah,
I'm safe. And then
exactly.
we're talking, about a lot of people, a lot of people, they think that everyone has the time. And, living in the States, that the average, time off that you get is 2 weeks a year that you can get. So taking a whole month is really a challenge. And like a lot of people, when they see people walking 1 week, are like, oh, those are not peregrinos. I'm like, no, that's just normal people that sometimes there's different countries in the world that, getting time off is hard or you have to save for a long time or even you have to save the money because it's expensive.
Right.
So when did you really start planning for the Camino? What was the day that you were like, I'm walking?
Yes. So throughout the fall of 2021, that's when I first spoke with you. And so I was kind of slowly thinking about it. And then once um, my spring semester during that, I was really planning. And then I had planned a trip with my friends to Barcelona. And then I came from Barcelona to Saint Jean Pied de Port to start. So, really, in April and May of 2022, that's when I was really kind of full steam planning. But then I realized I'm a planner and I'm very organized. And so I made this full itinerary and then I basically didn't go by it at all.
It's good
but
to know, and that's one thing. A lot of people that's one of the misconceptions. Oh, you shouldn't plan for the Camino de Santiago. You have to let go. And some of us we are planners, and you need that kind of like relax and knowing that. But then you can follow the plan or just throw it on the first day and say whatever is whatever.
yes. Yeah, exactly. I think I definitely underestimated how much I would be able to walk every day. I had planned like these goals that were very short, and then I ended up walking way more because I just didn't know how much my body would be able to do. But then it was beautiful. I loved being able to, I think it was a good challenge for me personally, too, to not have a plan really and just kind of go with the flow and see what each day would bring and kind of go from there.
And how did you base your research? Was it, books, blogs, YouTube, Instagram, of all of them? You did a one by one day, where I'm going to sleep, what I'm going to visit, how many kilometers I'm going to walk, or it was mostly, I'm like, I expect to go from here to here.
Yeah, I think I use a combination of trying to like find Instagram accounts of people who had done it. That's how I found Camino people. Also have a few books like the John Brearley.
Then you really, of course, the
Yeah,
Bible of the
yeah,
Camino de Santiago.
exactly. I did end up really relying on that too, every day to kind of read ahead and see what was coming up. Um, yeah, so I think a combination of websites, social media, guidebooks that I had purchased to kind of get a sense of what I was getting myself into.
And now that you have done it and you knew that you planned for your next Camino, will you plan the same way or will you be a little more like, whatever is whatever? I know I will be okay.
That's a good question. I think it depends on who I will go with, and now I have like a sense of, you gave me a bunch of wonderful tips about albergues to stay at and things like that. So I think there were some things that I didn't go to that I wish I did. So
Hmm.
I think I will, yeah, have some things in mind that I'll definitely want to see. But I think it's important overall to have a sense of just ease with it and just go with the flow. I think um, having too much of a regimen kind of takes away the some of the beauty of the Camino.
I think it's a mix of both. It's great because I'm like, for a lot of people, I live in Spain and a lot of things that I visit the Camino was the first time for me, but I can go and visit it almost any time that I
Right,
have a couple of days off. But when you travel all the way from the States, Australia, South Africa, whatever, and this is a once in a lifetime experience, I agree with you that it's great to have, at least I want to visit this, I want to go here. I would like to have this experience because I heard, there's some albergues that are truly incredible that for some of them you have to plan ahead because they are not really the normal stages that you will find in the Joe
right.
Riley or any other book because they are right in the middle. So if you don't know about those, you're gonna be totally off. And those are jewels of the Camino that is, once in a lifetime for sure, because you're not gonna go back probably there. So
Yes, yeah,
but being able
definitely.
to also break everything and say, I found this group, I'm going with them, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I think, yeah, a good balance is important.
And then suddenly you start planning everything. How was the feeling that, one day suddenly, as you were saying, you were going first to Barcelona with your friends for party, and then you were going to your Camino. So how did you plan for both? Because I'm like, the kind of like outfits that you need for Barcelona are totally different than the ones that you need for the Camino.
This is so true. Well, thankfully, one of my friends took my suitcase home to the United
Oh,
States.
that's a good one.
And so then I could just bring my backpack with my gear. And I took some trains and buses to get to Saint Jean Pied de Port from
I
Barcelona.
was
And
gonna
that,
do that. Another tip for people: if you can send your backpack to the Santiago de Compostela, and they will keep your luggage over there for you till you finish your Camino. So if anyone is traveling here, and that's one of the things that I also encourage people to do. If you travel to Spain, go and visit Madrid, visit Pamplona, visit Barcelona, go to San Sebastian. Take a couple of days to visit a more city or museums or have a good time. And the Camino
mhm,
is there, and it's gonna have you're gonna have plenty of time, so you can take a couple of days off to discover, you don't know when it's going to be the next time that you're going to be able to be in Spain. So take it
absolutely.
easy and enjoy.
Yes, totally recommend.
And it's really cheap. I don't think it's really expensive that you can send it and they will keep it in Santiago, for as long as you need, or in any, postal service, you can do it here. In
Mhm.
Italy, that's what I did. I sent my backpack to Assisi for Fermaposta, that's how it's
Oh,
called
wow.
in Italy, and they keep your luggage for you and totally, and I think that's probably something that you can do all over Europe if you're hiking.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah, it makes it much easier.
And then you go to Barcelona, you fly. You're flying with your friends, or did you go by yourself? Or
I flew with my friends and two of my classmates from medical school, actually. So we
and no
had so much fun.
joining for the Camino? No one even have thought like, I'm gonna join Mari for a couple of days with you. I'm gonna backpack. I'm like, or they didn't come to their minds.
Yeah, I don't think it was really on their minds. They had other summer plans back in the States. Well, my friend Hibana traveled around Europe a bit, but I was also pretty intent. I wanted this to be kind of like I wanted to do
Your
it on my
journey.
own.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, but I think my friend Hibana and her mom, they definitely do want to do it at some point.
So that's one of the things also I think, when people talk about the Camino Santiago, I think the best way is just by yourself, your first Camino. But I think it's also great to do with friends, family, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, whatever. I think
Mhm.
you get something different. But if you can do it by yourself, that will be, the perfect Camino.
Yes, no, for sure. I was intent on my first one doing it alone, but now that I have all these other Caminos on my bucket list, I definitely would want to do it with friends or family, for sure.
And then you go, you have fun in Barcelona, and then you arrive to Saint Jan, and suddenly there you are in Saint Jan, all surrounded by pilgrims. How was the feeling?
Oh, it was magical. I absolutely love Saint Jean Pied de Port. I think there's such a special feeling of excitement. You're about to embark on this amazing journey, and I was so excited. Like there was just a magic in the air, and walking around the city and going over that famous bridge. And I stayed in a beautiful hostel with people that some that I saw throughout the whole Camino. Um, yeah, I was just really excited. I was super nervous too. I didn't quite know what I had signed up for. Um, but yeah, I loved being there.
Did you sleep well the night before, or were you one of the ones that were walking around town just wandering and suddenly 3 a.m. you were like,
The night before, I was definitely walking around everywhere, but then I tried to get some rest because I knew it was going to be an early morning to try. And I also didn't know
hmm
I was going to go all the way to Roncesvalles the first day because I actually had made a hostel reservation.
from
What's the
Horizon?
Yeah, but I ended up just I kept going. But yeah, we started really early. Probably started walking at 6, and it was just so amazing. Like the sunrise, going through the Pyrenees, walking out of Saint Jean Pied de Port into the mountains. I feel like every 5 minutes I was just stopping and like looking around and just taking it all in. It's just truly spectacular.
And you say we, you already met some pilgrims on the day before, or you met some pilgrims on the morning. How did this happen?
Yes, I met a wonderful girl named Mary from the UK the evening before we began, and so I started walking with her, but she was very fast, so she went ahead. But already started to meet so many people just on the first day, even because we're all starting this journey. So yeah, I never felt like I was alone, especially the
Because
first day.
a lot of people, they're scared on the first day because this is like going to, your first day of school or your first day of college, and you're going
Yeah,
abroad. You don't know anyone, and you're in St. Janet. Like, is they a pilgrim? Is he a pilgrim? Does he speak English? And I know that a lot of people, that's kind of like, they are nervous, and everybody's the same way. So I
yeah,
always happen for me the same. I don't know if I've been in St. Janet, I think already 6 times, and every day I met people or during dinner or in the morning, and it's super
hmm
easy, and everybody's, welcome just to approach. So you were by yourself. How did you manage that kind of like of being by yourself in such a new environment? Were you one of those that goes and talks to people, or were you waiting to people to approach you?
I think I was, going up to people and introducing myself, and um, yeah, I think the first morning before we started walking, we had breakfast all together with a bunch of
hmm
pilgrims, and then we had a little like ceremony, and the owner of the albergue like played a song for us and wished us luck on the journey. And so then I think I started off walking with some of those people that we had breakfast with too. But then you just meet so many people along the way, and it's so easy to talk to them. Um, so yeah, I think it kind of just came about naturally.
I think that's a great trick. If you're a more introvert person, try to find one of those albergues that have breakfast and stay for breakfast. So you're going to meet a lot of pilgrims. And if not, once you start going up, there is a pastry shop on the right side. If you wait over there for 5 minutes, there's going to be pilgrims arriving for sure. And if no,
Yeah.
you're going to be passing. The first day is, as we will talk right now, you're going to be passed, and probably, you will be passing people. So you're going to be making friends because everybody's just willing to talk, or they're just willing to share their first day experience. But as you were saying that you have planned to sleep in Horizon. One of the things that I haven't done yet in my life, and it's always in my list, but
Mhm.
I'm always, kind of like, I have the time. I'm ready for this. But in your case, you were a planner and you have Horizon. Did you even make a reservation and then you say like, I'm going on?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was the part of the trip where, like I mentioned, I had a plan and I had already made some reservations. And I had read online, it was a good idea to break up that first day because it can be really challenging and tiring. And so I was thinking, oh, this is my first day hiking. I'm probably going to be tired. Um, but then since we started so early, we got to Orasan also pretty early. And I was like, oh, I
Probably
think
by 10, you will be there. I'm
yeah,
like, that's
yeah, exactly. So, got some water and some food, but then I decided, no, I kind of want to keep walking. So I just told the albergue I'm going to keep going and someone else can take my spot.
obviously they're pretty nice because there's always people willing, one of the things, if you're coming from abroad like the States or Australia, the first day take going to Horizon is amazing. It's perfect because then you can take your, jet lag can
Yes.
really slow you down during the Camino. Coming from the States, if you're coming from Australia, not because you're gaining time, but when you're coming from the States, Canada, South America, that one take a couple of days, easy. And if you're going to
Yes.
stay in Horizon, you have the time to be leaving Saint Jean. You can leave Saint Jean easily by 10, 11 in the morning, have a good coffee, have a good sleeping. You stay in Horizon, and then by the next day in Roncesvalles, you're ready to go. So Horizon for sure. And
Exactly.
also the ambient, the people in Horizon, they say
Hmm.
it's one of the best places because you meet a lot of people. Everybody's kind of like on the same idea, just taking it
Yeah.
easy. And the dinner over there is a communal dinner, and the views are just incredible.
Oh, so breathtaking. And everyone I spoke with who did stay overnight in Orison was so happy that they did.
Mhm.
They said it was an amazing experience.
But
So
also having the whole afternoon in Roncesvalles for beer and tapas, it's amazing. So
that's true.
both work. But and if you don't have
Yeah.
the time, also it's also true that Horizon puts an extra day kind of like into the whole journey. So it
Right.
depends, but both are great. And the first day, usually in every blog, YouTube, podcast, Instagram, they say that it's a killer, that is super hard. What were your thoughts about the first day?
Yes, I agree. It was very challenging physically, but I think the landscape is just so spectacular that I kind of forgot that I was tired because you're just like taking it all in. But by the end of the day, getting to Roncesvalles, I think I just laid down in my bed and fell asleep immediately. So it was definitely tiring, but totally worth it.
How was the feeling of the Camino? Was it what you experienced, what you thought will be from the movie, from all the research from the books, or was something different than what you expected?
Honestly, that first day, it was so exhilarating, and I was kind of like, "Is this even real?" It feels like a dream. So I don't think the first day was representative of all of my days on the Camino. Absolutely, it was
Mm.
different, and there were good days and there were more difficult ones, especially on the Meseta. But the first day through the Pyrenees was kind of like more than I could ever imagine. It was truly just magical, like being on top of the clouds and seeing them over the valleys and walking through like over trees and like soft leaves on the ground. There were so many different, and then like seeing horses up in the mountains and all these wild animals. I was When I called my parents that night in Roncesvalles, I was like, "You're never gonna believe like all the things that I saw just today."
When was the time, after we always say that at the beginning, we're all tourists that start walking. When was the time that you suddenly get more used to, or did you have your Camino family, or was more comfortable walking and continuing? How long did it take you to get into a Camino pace?
Um, well, it took a couple, like probably my body wasn't really used to the walking until like 10 days, I
Hmm.
think. Um, my body was really sore after, um, the first handful of days, the first week. But then you get into a rhythm, and, for a couple days I would be with the same people, and then they would take a rest day and I'd keep going, or vice versa. Um, and that was okay. That's part of the Camino, and it's somehow you always kind of catch up with people too. But I would say like a good week to 10 days. That's
Hmm.
kind of when I started to find a groove.
Yeah, I think the first days, a lot of people they talk about the how hard is the first day, but then the second day going to 3D and then going to Pamplona is what usually kills.
Yes, going down to Zubiri was very challenging, and that's when I really started to use my walking poles too, because it was very tough on your knees, but also beautiful.
And sometimes with one of the biggest concepts of the Camino is the Camino family. You were saying that you were working with people, but that you were also taking days off, and that's one of the great things. But sometimes a lot of people there, when you walk with someone that is already going with friends and they take the day off here, but you want to take a day off somewhere, or you need a day off and you're like, oh, but my friends are keeping on going, so how
Mm-hmm.
was the first day that you suddenly that people that you were walking with they were continuing or you were staying? How was the break and how you decide to keep on going with them or just doing your own journey, just taking care of yourself?
Yes. So, I mean, going into the Camino, I really did want it to be kind of like a personal journey. And I realized I was with a group of Americans for a couple of days. But I found out like they were kind of like booking their hostels all together. And as I walked with them, it was more of a group experience and it wasn't really a personal one, which is totally fine. Some people, that's what they
Hmm.
prefer.
Yeah.
But then they were taking a rest day, and then I kind of decided I think I'm going to keep going um, because I filled up for it, and yeah, I just wanted to kind of continue on like my journey. But then it was beautiful because you meet new people that you hadn't before. Um, but I think all the people that I met on the Camino were so kind, and That's, yeah, like we've said, that's the beauty of it. There were a couple people that, really meant a lot to me that I still keep in touch with. And, you know, I think people that you will never forget.
And how did you decide about your days off? Was it based on how tired you were? Was it based on visiting cities? Was it a mix of both?
Yeah. So I actually ended up only taking one rest day.
Hmm.
But I took it in Burgos. And another group that I was with, a lot of people were taking a rest day, and there were festivals when I was there. So it was a great time in such a beautiful city. So I realized that I could use the rest and also, to explore the city and really enjoy it before moving on.
I think it's a great idea. The rest days are great. And if you don't have the time, because as we were talking at the beginning, sometimes you don't really have the time. I think the great cities, like Burgos, León, Logroño, Pamplona, and like if you can take a day off in those cities, it's amazing. But if not, there's a great trick that, is planning on just walking the day before, like 10 or 12K or
Yeah,
15K. So you can arrive by 12 and you have time. Instead of going to the public albergue, you go to a private one and you have the whole afternoon to visit the city and you are not tired. It's one of the things I
exactly.
realized that when you visit the city, you walk.
Yeah, you
You
add
walk a
up
lot.
more. Yeah, exactly.
So some days those 20K plus maybe 10 or 12 more K in the afternoon if you is one of those big cities like Burgos or Leon that has a lot to visit and you go tapas, you go for a drink, and then you are like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot to put onto your body.
yeah, definitely. It's worth it though. You definitely want to be able to see the cities before you keep walking the next day. Like it was
That's
great
the
when you showed us around Pamplona. That was
and
one
that's
of
the,
the
it's part of
highlights.
the experience of the Camino. Like you're coming here for the first time. And for me, the when I walked the Camino was my first time in Burgos, my first time in Leon, and I live right here.
Yeah.
So you have to go visit, you have to visit the cathedral, you have to visit the bars, you have to go to tapas. One of the things that, for example, right now, even in Pamplona, the albergues, they used to close at 11, at 10. Now they close at 11 to allow people to be out and to visit and to have a good time.
Hmm.
And, you know, you deserve it.
Yeah, no, for sure. You got to make the most of it while you're there.
And we were talking before that one of the hard times for you was the meseta. Why? Right now, that's also one of the biggest concerns right now. A lot of people are like, oh, skip the meseta, or don't skip the meseta, or the meseta is the best part, or the meseta is the worst. What happened in the meseta?
Yes, I definitely don't think you should skip it if you have the chance to do it, for sure. Um, I think just they talk about how mentally it can become challenging because for days you're going through wheat fields and it's kind of like the same landscape. Um, so you really have to turn inward and it's more reflective in that sense. But I think I was alone more on the Meseta as well. There were some stretches where I was just walking by myself or I would only see a few pilgrims. Um, so I think I got a little bit lonely, but it also made me more appreciative for small things. I remember one day, it was towards the end of the Meseta, but I was just going through. Also, there's a lot of walking near the highway too, so that
Hmm.
could be challenging. But I came upon a field of sunflowers and it was so beautiful. I just started crying instantly. It was amazing. And then I met up with a friend from Brazil who I had met before, and she is so funny. And she was like, we're just going to run around the sunflower field and dance. And then she took a video of us and she's like, we're just going to yell, like, we're just going to let it all out. And it was just amazing. So I think that's just one example. Just seeing like small things or having an interaction with someone, I just became so much more acutely grateful for in the Meseta, which I think, is an amazing lesson that I learned then. There was this one day, I think I was leaving, I forget what city I was leaving, but it was rainy at some points and then it started hailing and I was by myself and I was just walking and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so painful right now. I want to get to the albergue and just sleep. Um, so there are definitely tough moments like that, but I am grateful for those moments too because I think not the Camino isn't easy, and the hard moments are just as meaningful as the happy, easy ones.
That's one of the things that I also, try and to promote people. A lot of people, they see the Camino de Santiago, this Disneyland trip, that everything is perfect, everything is beautiful. You go to here, you get your pictures. And Camino de Santiago can be tough. I'm like, there's people that passed away during the Camino. There's people that get really enduring the Camino. And there's people that they cannot finish through mental, because sometimes there's so much going on that it's not the time or physical. But it is true that the Camino without the bad moments doesn't it wouldn't be the Camino because and it's like life,
Yeah,
I think that.
exactly. Yeah, the Camino is life.
And then you start going to the Camino. Suddenly, the Camino gets more into you. You are part of the Camino. It seems like something so easy. You wake up, you walk. How was the feeling, when we were more comfortable? Like, what was your family and your friends telling you from abroad? I'm like, probably they saw a change in your face, a change in your voice. Suddenly, you're more like, something changed. No, there's one day that suddenly everything's kind of like click.
You mean when I got home? Did my
No, I
family?
mean during the Camino that,
Oh,
suddenly there's that day that you feel more, as you were saying, 10 days usually takes for everybody. It can be
yeah.
5 days, 6 days, but that's for everyone. But there's one day that suddenly you're like, I can
Hmm.
do this forever. I would like to do this forever.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think, yeah, probably around, halfway through, you really get into a rhythm and you just get up and walk, and like that's just your existence, and you can't really think of doing anything else. I think that's partly why I didn't take many rest days, is because my body just wanted to keep going. Um, and I'm not sure if there was like a singular moment where I felt like
Mhm.
a click, but more of just kind of like a progression. Um, and I think it was really beautiful. And also, I'm not sure, like, personally, I changed, but I think by the end of it, I felt more myself. Like, I just felt more authentically me. Um, and I think there's something really unique about walking. It's almost in itself a form of meditation. And so I think throughout the days, it's just really calming. I felt my mind just at ease, and I don't think I've been. I didn't feel really any stress, which was such an amazing feeling, especially
That's
having
a
come
weird.
from like my first semester of medical school where there was a lot of stress. Um, but yeah, it was just such a, I think, a pure experience. And I think there was one albergue that I stayed at, and there was a handwritten sign that said "Se prohíbe el estrés," and I thought that was great. But yeah, it's just an authentic, pure experience that it's hard to also encapsulate into words, because I feel like you have to experience it. But um, I think it was very calming and put things into perspective. Like, I don't stress about a lot of things that I used to.
Mhm. I think that getting back to the basics, like breakfast, walk,
Mhm.
beer, snack, walk, talk to people, shower, dinner, walk, have fun. You're like,
Yeah.
by the day that you don't know anymore which day of the week or which day of the month
Mhm.
it is, that's the day that you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it
But
starts
then
blending together.
suddenly you start getting closer to Santiago, and the feeling is like, oh, finally, this thing that I've been planning for 5, 6 years, this thing that I've been walking for more than 20 days is there. How was
Mhm.
your feeling of Santiago?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine too, because most of the Camino, at least from my perspective, you're like, wow, I have so much farther to go.
Hmm.
Like the first part, like, oh my gosh, like I haven't even made a dent in the whole journey yet. So then by getting towards the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Um, but at the same time, like I had never, it's hard to imagine completing this journey. There was a sense of excitement too, because I was very excited to, I miss my family and my friends. I had been alone. I hadn't been like traveling alone for this long before. So there was a sense of excitement in that way. But also a sense of sadness too about leaving the Camino, and, all of these amazing people that you've met from all over the world. Some of them, you might never see again, but that's life. That's part of it. So definitely a mixture of emotions. And I think you had mentioned that when you arrived to Santiago, you didn't really have a big like emotional reaction to it. Is that correct?
No, for me,
Um,
it was amazing. Like for me, my first day, I took all my Camino family. I want to arrive to Santiago by myself. For me, my
right.
Camino was my journey. And
Exactly.
even though I have a really tight Camino family that we mix around the later days, but arriving to Santiago was something that I need to do for myself. So I wake up
Mhm.
super early in the morning. I arrived there. If I was kind of like the first person in the Bradoiro, I just drop on the floor. Suddenly, a group of kids start clapping, and I'm like, "This is amazing!" But I didn't cry there. I wasn't one of those.
Yeah.
But for me, it was in Muxia was the time that I'm like, "Oh, I cry like a baby." But Santiago was
Yeah.
just joy. It was just fulfillment. It was like, wow.
Yes.
It
It
was
was,
weird, but
it
I don't know.
is a
For you, how
strange
was it?
feeling. Yeah, so same, like similarly, I really it was a personal journey for me. So I woke up early, it was dark, and also there was a lot of tourists at that point, doing the final stretch. But um, I was also one of the hardest days physically for me because even though it was a shorter day, I had really been pushing myself the past week, and so
Hmm.
my body was exhausted. So it was actually challenging for me to finish the walk, but the way that the city of Santiago is set up, how you come up the side of the church and then you turn and you see the huge cathedral, I didn't realize kind of how that was going to happen. And so it was really profound for me. And I did start crying out of exhaustion and also like happiness. I was like, we did it. Um, but, and also just like being there in the square and watching people come in and seeing their reactions, and it was so beautiful. And I just sat down and took it all in for a couple of hours, and then you see people, friends coming in too, which is amazing. But it was a really happy moment, I think.
Yeah, for me, I think that one of the best parts, and I always say, take a day off to stay in Santiago in a couple hours, sit down on one of those, columns and watch people arrive. And
Yes.
like the joy on people's faces, and if someone that you have walked with him, if they when they see you, you see them, it's like getting again into Santiago. It's like, arriving to Santiago times three times, four times the square. I'm
Yeah.
like, for me, it's one of the best things to do in Santiago. Just being at Obradoiro and watching people's faces, from all over the world, from all kind of. And as you were saying, the Camino Frances arrival has something different because you don't see the plaza. You are going down,
Hmm.
but you see the cathedral. From the Camino Portuguese, it's just more city, and I don't know. The feeling is totally different. And with the
Yeah.
Frances, when you cross those stairs, and the
Yeah.
cathedral is on your back, suddenly you turn around and you're like, I made it. I crossed a
Yeah.
whole country.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm still pinching myself. Like I still think like, wow, that actually happened. But it's really amazing. It's so beautiful to be there, and the sense of magic that I was talking about in Saint Jean Pied de Port. I mean, it's present throughout the whole Camino, but
Mhm.
especially in Santiago, I think
Yeah,
it's.
Santiago has something different.
Mhm.
That's why I think, staying for a couple of days to get it in, go to the cathedral, take your time. Even if you're going to Fisterra Musia, just take a day off and then come back. But totally worth 24 hours of just breathing in the whole feeling of Santiago.
Absolutely, yeah. And then I was also very happy to wear something other than my walking clothes too. And I stayed in the hotel that night, the first night, which was nice to get a good shower.
And
And
that is also, one of the things
yeah.
that I always encourage people. If you have the money, every once in a while, take a good rest day in a good hotel. Try to get one of those local hotels, boutique that is run by a local, or go to a nice albergue and get a private room for yourself. That is also part of the Camino. I'm like
Mhm.
sleeping on the floor, of course, go do it,
Yes,
but
that
also
too.
take a good day. And if you have to save it, save for yourself for a good day in a good hotel in Santiago. They are cheap. If you are coming from the States, compare, they are really nice hotels. And as you say, having a great night out, go to a good restaurant.
Hmm.
You deserve it. You make it. Come on, you walk a whole country.
Yeah, exactly. You got to celebrate it.
One of the things that is interesting. I'm like, you're a student. You are being gonna become a doctor. And one of the things that I think the Camino has the power right now. That's what we're seeing. Is taking the stress, taking a lot of things, out of our minds. And right now we live in such a stressful life that one of the things that surprised me, here in Spain, there are a couple of nonprofits that use the Camino with people with physical disabilities, but we haven't yet made the change to use, the Camino as something more fundamental for people with different, disabilities. What is your perspective, for someone that is, starting to become someone that is going to help people and also that have walked the Camino?
Yeah, I think honestly, as a training physician now, I think the Camino has been an integral part of my educational experience. Um, I know you're trying to make the Camino more accessible for all people, which I think is amazing. And I think the Camino, the sense of community and the spirit on the Camino is so strong that anyone can do it with the right team. And there's one, company that does help people with disabilities do the last 100 kilometers.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, if there's anything I'd like to do is to help other people be able to experience the Camino. Um, I think one of my good friends who I met on the Camino, well, two, these older gentlemen from Dublin, Ireland, Tom and Tony, they're some of my favorite people that I met.
Home and Tony, it
Um,
seems like a good movie.
yeah, they were so funny. I love them. Um, I think Tom said to me, the Camino is the way that God intended the world to be. And that really stuck with me because everyone's really helping each other and wants to support one another.
Hmm.
And, that's like, it makes me hopeful for the future of humanity. Um, but I think it really got me excited too about pursuing medicine. It's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I actually want to pursue developmental pediatrics and
Hmm.
work with children with disabilities and their families. And I think I had a lot of time on the Camino to really think about that and just get excited about it. And it was reaffirming, you know, just to see all these beautiful things every day on the Camino. It's like, it was reaffirming like this is what I want to do. Um, but I'm going on a tangent.
No, no, but that's the Camino.
Yeah,
Sometimes this helps this, and suddenly this comes out, and that is the Camino, and
yeah,
that is life.
yeah. Um, but I think the Camino, like in essence, is just inclusion. Like everyone is very supportive, and yeah, I think that's just a really beautiful aspect of it. And I think it helps you kind of realize what's important to you also. And for me, it was reaffirming in what I would like to do with my future.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I see in the Camino is that puts everyone on the same level. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, if you're Christian, you're whatever. I'm
Hmm.
like, you go to the albergue and everybody's the same. I have experience. I remember this, clearly. I was walking the Camino Portuguese with that suddenly a bunch of kids from Madrid on the last year of school joined me, and they were like, more on the party side. And
Hmm.
we arrived to this albergue, and suddenly these teachers from the state, totally, close to the retirement, were like, we're outside, having a beer, and the kids came in and like, here you go, have a beer with me. I'm like, 68-year-old woman from the state teacher having a beer with an 18 years old from Spain. I'm like, what else in the world can you say something like that? Talking
Yeah,
from equal to equal,
exactly.
learning from each other. I'm like, that doesn't happen anywhere else.
No, I think it's a great example. And yeah, that concept of the Camino being a great equalizer is one of the best lessons that I learned too. Like, yeah, you're right. It really doesn't matter where you come from or what you do or how much money you have, because we're all pilgrims. We're all on the same journey. We're all walking every day, most of us with the goal to go to Santiago. So I think that's a really beautiful lesson, and it gives me a lot of hope.
And that's where, accessibility and, people like you that are working, the Camino can gives us, people with, that are able to walk on like the being able to experience life through somebody else's eyes and being there and
Hmm.
realizing, I'm like, and also for people that has, all kind of disabilities to be able to go there by themselves. So that's one of the things that I try. There's companies that take people on the Camino, but at the end, there's people that have walked with the Camino and, in a wheelchair by themselves. And that's what we need to know. And, the problem mostly right now is not the Camino, is the people that live or doing the Camino.
Hmm.
And I always ask themselves, I don't even know sometimes if I, need to give a hand or something. And that's something that I think nowadays, we need to work like all of us on to be more inclusive and being more respectful because, and as you were saying, the Camino is a perfect place for all of this to happen because on a normal day, we don't go to somebody that is 50 years older than you and you start talking or having a beer with them, or you go with someone that, is blind and start talking with them. But in the Camino, you do.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing. And we all take things from each other and we learn. And,
Hmm.
by the time you ride to Santiago, as you were saying, it's not about the journey, it's the people that you met, the things that you learn, and how you became a better person.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I totally agree with all the things you just said.
But you already answered one of my last questions before, but I would like to go back again and always say it. What happened to Mari? How did you change? What changed in you from the day that you leave, Shenzhen to the day that you arrived to Santiago?
Yeah. I think at the end of it and throughout, I was proud of myself for being able to do it by myself. Um, it's something, yeah, like I said, that I've wanted to do for a long time. And when I lived in South America, I was always around other people, and I actually had tried to travel, really by myself.
Hmm.
But I ended up going home to the US because I kind of freaked out and I was scared about it. And I don't think I was ready. And so since that moment too, I was like, at some point, I'm going to travel alone. And so this was my opportunity to kind of show myself that I can do it. And so I think that's part of it. And like I said, I don't think there was any, huge changes in, who I am. But I think by the end of it, I just felt more, free, and I felt more like authentically myself. Maybe throughout the journey, you kind of like shed some things, and you just feel more you. At least that was how my experience was. And just, I think, even more grateful for all the things that I've been able to experience and all the blessings that I have in my life. It was a kind of a way to like fill up my cup before, starting medical school, and to just get
The
really
other
excited.
Camino.
Yeah, yeah. Just get excited about service, and giving to others, because I felt like the Camino gave me so much. Um, so I think overall, just being present, I felt very present throughout the journey, and just feeling grateful for life.
Agree totally with you. And one of the things that I ask a lot of people, when did the thought of walking another Camino came to your mind? Were you one of those that already, by day 10, you were like, oh, I'm gonna do another Camino? Or were you one of those that, were a little more reluctant and you're like, maybe arriving in Santiago, maybe when you arrive back home, but there was a new Camino coming in, or you were already planning the list like some of us, like day one, I went like, oh, you walk this Camino and you walk this one, okay.
Yes, well, it was certainly helpful and uh, amazing to hear about other people who had walked the Camino so many times and walked all of these different Caminos. So I definitely picked up on that. But by the end of it, I was also exhausted. So it wasn't really in my mind like, oh, I'm going to sign up for the next one right away. But I think once I got home to the US and throughout the fall, I'm still reflecting about it. Uh, I've just become more grateful for the experience since I've been home too. I
Mm.
think, right after arriving to Santiago and I went to Finisterre for a night, everything was so like overwhelming too. It was hard to like appreciate it all. It was amazing. Um, but I think in the last like few weeks, I've been kind of thinking, okay, when am I going to do the next one? So it took me a little bit, um, but I'm definitely on board to keep walking.
And I think that's one of the things also a lot of people they put into, like the whole craziness of finishing the Camino. But sometimes it takes a while to decompress for the Camino. That's where I think, everybody should take at least, if you can do it a couple days or 3, 4 days in Spain to just, thought about everything that happened in your life. And if not, take a couple of days home, to go back to real life. Because as you were saying, the Camino is truly amazing, but it's not real life. And, we
Mhm.
have to be true. Like, this is hard. And the hardest part is how we take the things that we learn in the Camino and the way of living that we take in the Camino back to our normal days. And
Exactly.
sometimes that is tough.
Yes. It is, because it's kind of like an ideal way of living. Like you want to go up and introduce yourself to strangers, but in real life, maybe you won't be as inclined to do that. But I think taking small lessons from the Camino and trying to like keep them in mind and apply them in your daily life, I think helps. At least it's helped me live more fully and live more in the moment, and also just to continue to be aware of like all of these amazing, like wondrous things around you at all times. Just kind of reminding yourself to be aware of them.
Oh, agree. And final question, you were one of the lucky ones that took a gap year. That's something that for us, Spaniards here is totally uncommon. If I tell my family that, I'm gonna take a gap year after high school, they will slap me in the face. I'm like, no, you're going straight to college. That's what you do, study. But then
Yeah.
also you decided, that gap year was something, and then you took this, step before you were doing your whole medical new Camino, and then you went to the Camino. What would you say to someone that is, there and is like, maybe I want to go, maybe I don't want to go. This is something that, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that you should definitely go. Like, I think these opportunities don't come that frequently. And so I think if there's an opportunity, that I would highly recommend it to anyone. I don't think you will regret it. It's a truly amazing opportunity, and you can make it what it is. Um, but there's so much to learn and so much to gain from the people that you meet and the things that you experience. And I think for me, it's one of the best experiences that I've had in my life. So I highly recommend it to anyone who's considering it. I think you should just go for it. YOLO.
So true, and that's one of the things that we learned, but that's one of the things that is magic with the community, all the ones that we walk when you see someone or you chat with someone, and that's the thing, for us, we met once, but still, you met a pilgrim that has walked the Camino, and suddenly it's like, oh, we have so much in common already.
Yeah,
And I don't
exactly.
know if you're friends, but they're like, people get bored of you just, talking of the Camino and going to the Camino, but if you
Yeah.
try it, you know, as Mari said it, you wouldn't regret it.
Yes, for sure. And you will have stories to tell for years and years. And yeah, I think it's a really special experience. And I think everyone should do it at least once in their life.
I agree 100%. Anyway, Mari, thank you so much for sharing your Camino experience with us, for sharing your Camino story. And, that's what we think here. It's all about the people, and it's all about the people's stories. And that's why I think, a lot of people get encouraged, and you can realize that, the Camino is that. It's people walking, people living, and suddenly you realize that there is much more than the everyday. And as you were saying, suddenly one day you forget about the stress, you forget about the life you live in, you forget about the, who won the championship or whatever, and the only thing you care is about the who's walking next to you, what are you gonna be eating before, how's your bed gonna be, and simple
Yeah,
things in life.
exactly. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Jose, for inviting me on your podcast and for helping me be able to do the Camino. Like you were the first person that I met who had done it. So I really appreciate all of your help and
Let's
perspective.
hope, that the seed that we planted and right now is you when you finish your career and you will be bringing more people, helping them with all things because that's one of the things that is incredible. I'm like, I've seen blind people walking the Camino, people with no legs, people with all kinds, and
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible because yes, you
Yeah,
can do it. There's no,
yeah, the Camino is
and
for
that's one of the,
everyone.
and that's one of the things that I think the Camino has different than the PCT or any other big long distance trail. That really this one is for everyone. You may need more
Mm-hmm.
help, less help. You need to do a little detour, but the Caminos here and the Camino Frances in itself is such an incredible experience that anyone can experience the life. It's safe,
Mm-hmm.
super secure. You can quit anytime, you can go anytime, and that what is the magic. So let's hope that in the future we see you bringing a lot of people here, to do whatever they have to do here in the Camino.
Yes, that's the goal. That's what my hope is to, help other people experience it, and hopefully we can go to your albergue at some point too.
Of course, let's hope we can make it. We are planning hopefully a new Puerta del Camino event this year, but everything was being so busy and the
Yeah,
whole albergue, I'm like such a great project. But as we said, little things by little people, little by
exactly.
little, and hope
Yes,
one day, we'll have something big. So we hope that
absolutely.
we will have you here soon. And anyway, if you have any other Caminos or any questions, and that's we always say, there is your first Camino, but you never know when you want to walk your last.
Exactly. Yes, no, will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As we always said, buen camino, ultrella.
Buen camino.